Another beautiful day.
Yeah.
Mike was saying something earlier to the effect of what an amazing place we live in. Like, what complaints can you have? We'll show it in a few moments, but this view is absolutely spectacular. I could do absolutely anything here. I could think here, I could talk here, I could just be with you guys here. This place is as close to perfect as a place can get. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%. Weather's nice. The view's nice. It's like Mike said. He's like, you know what we got to complain? Got good jobs. We in a nice area. We got good people. There's really not much you can complain about. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I sent something to Andrew the other day, and it was to the effect of, no matter where you are, at what stage in life you're in, we need to be grateful for the things that we have. We need to be grateful for the people that we are. And we also need to embrace what seems like such a simple understanding and yet it has such complex needs, which is that you're doing okay. I'm finding more and more that I have to ground myself day in and day out to ensure that all of the input that I'm receiving into my life doesn't affect me adversely. And it takes time. And I'd like to tell you it's something that you can do once and then never have to do again, but unfortunately that's not the case. It's almost a requirement daily to prime yourself for the day to come, and then, for lack of a better term, deprime yourself at the end of the day from all of the anxieties and all of the stresses. I look at you young men, I look at myself from time to time, and I'm just beyond proud. I haven't known you guys your whole lives, but for the time that I have known you, I have never seen such an impressive feat of young men coming together with a singular goal, a positive nature, and no ill will towards anyone else in your pursuit of achieving your dreams. I don't know that everything works out in the end, but I think if you frame your goals correctly and they align with what happiness should truly be, I think it goes well. There's all types of success that we hope for: monetary, cars, travel, speaking to as many people as we possibly can. But I've learned to realign my vision of what success looks like to be cohesive with how my family views me, to be cohesive with what my legacy looks like when I leave this place. And as I've done that, I've begun to notice a shift in my self-confidence and, more importantly, in my peace. It hasn't changed my work ethic at all, which I think is something that people would become concerned about. Like, wait, if you realign and you decide to change what you're chasing or change what makes you happy, does that mean that you're going to lose some of that ambition? And I'm a living testament of not at all. As a matter of fact, once I realigned to the way that you all viewed me and how you all were doing health-wise and consciousness-wise, it actually made me want to work harder. There's value being a part of something like this. I don't know that everyone's going to find something like this, but I'd encourage them to look for it.
Yeah.
I like whatever we have going on here. At times I don't fully understand it. At times I don't fully know how to manage it. At times I don't fully know what direction it's headed in. But as long as the pillars remain love, joy, camaraderie, loyalty, those are 4 pillars that will hold up any building and in any situation. So thank you. Thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for continuing to be a part of it. My first question to you guys: how do you know when it's time to step away for a moment and just recenter and remove all of the input, or as much as you possibly can?
When I see myself starting to negatively affect the people around me, when I don't, kind of like what you said before you said, a rough week, you just kind of didn't feel at peace, and then this weekend you kind of felt a sense of peace. I feel like when at least for me, when I start kind of like realizing that, man, like my mind's not right, mentally, spiritually I'm not right, like that's a big one for me. Physically I'm just like drained, and I see my attitude and the way I am as an individual, and the way I know God has created me to be. When that starts to negatively affect other people, when it starts to when my attitude and my actions start to put others down, when it starts to affect the group. And what I love about all of you guys is as funny and collective and creative, and as a good time that we can have, we also do a good job as far as putting each other in check, and we don't take it with ill intent. We take it with just pure love. And I know for me, when I start to kind of just see myself going down that path, that regardless if I have to take a minute to step back and kind of reassess myself and reestablish myself, on my own for a little bit, that you guys won't take that as ill intent, or you guys won't take that as a negative thing. You guys will take that as in like, man, he sees something's up, he's going to go take care of his business. We'll just pick up what we need to pick up, and he'll come back and be able to pick up right where we left, or even a little further down the road. And so I know for me, it's kind of just how I affect my core group. And I think the biggest thing for what people what they should take from what I'm saying is, most people say like, oh well, you shouldn't care how what other people think of you. You shouldn't care about how like you shouldn't let that affect you. That's very much true, but when it comes to like my core friends of groups, you should definitely care, because it's like, if these are people that you call good friends, if these are people that you call your close circle, these are people that you call pretty much like your family, then it's like you should care how you're affecting them as an individual. You should definitely care, because we're not just hanging out doing stuff, we're not just friends, we're not just family. We're building an empire, and if we're building an empire, everyone needs to be good. Not everyone needs to be 100% all the time, because we all have our individual lives, but we should all collectively be good. And so for me, that's kind of how I approach things, especially recently. I kind of liked what you said, especially about not allowing everyone to kind of have access. I think that's another thing, and I feel like that's what's helped me in my mindset not go down that kind of like, I feel drained, I feel unhappy, I feel sad, I feel down, is not allowing, you know, every single person to have access to who the true Andrew is, or who the true Mike is, or who the true Reggie is, or who the true Cristobal is, or who the, you know, true G is, or so on and so forth, who the true Mac is, and so on and so forth. It's like, that's also another thing that's helped me kind of not allow myself to get to like those states where I'm just like I just don't feel great. I don't feel like myself. And so yeah.
So I think if you ever come across a time where you think you need to sit back and like recruit mentally, I think it's in two scenarios. One is whenever you're coming over a big obstacle and you start to lose track of like the end goal, because it'll remind you what you're working for, right? And then it'll just remind you that there's just one small obstacle. The other scenario is whenever you hit milestones, because if you're so deep in chasing that dream, you won't really know how far you came. So if you sit back and recoup, you can actually like appreciate where you've been versus where you're at now. I think that's actually the most important, to stay motivated towards the end goal.
I'm going to add a third one. When you get lost, right? So obstacles, milestones, and when you completely lose the path or you lose yourself. And that happens from a lot of noise. And that noise is that input that we are always focused on. Input is a beautiful yet dangerous creature that under the right circumstances is a magnificent and absolutely breathtaking view, and at other times it's a person who is dragging you down so much mentally that you have to step away from them momentarily, indefinitely, and sometimes unfortunately. I watch closer and closer every single day where I spend my time. I watch closer and closer every single day where I receive my input. You mentioned access. Access is the center of your control. The term high value has been thrown around a lot recently, somewhat recklessly. I would argue that the piece that's not discussed enough is access. Who can get to you? Who has your ear? Who can sway and affect your opinions and your decisions? As I remove access, I notice that some people take offense to it. I feel very comfortable and confident in my decision to do that. I take as little to no energy from those individuals as is possible. I do, to some degree, feel a sense of sadness for them, because I know that when they take those things uber personally, it's because they're having their own self-dilemmas that they have not quite resolved yet. I also know that I am of value. I'm of value to me. I'm of value to you. I'm of value to my family. I'm of value to my friends. And so if someone no longer has that value in their life, that could have an adverse effect on them. To which I would say, looking forward, maybe manage the next relationship of any type that you get into a little bit more carefully, because that's the main reason people remove access, is if your input is not well received by them. And I don't mean they're telling you like to be a better person or do anything of that nature. Those are the type of people you keep. I mean when they're constantly taking away from your mental, when they're constantly affecting you emotionally in an adverse way. It is every person's right to manage tediously who has access to them. The older you get, I can only speak for myself, the less people have access to you. Why do you think that is?
Repeat that one more time.
The older you get, the less people have access to you. Why do you think that is?
I think it's how do I put it? You know, the older you get, the wiser you get, in a sense. You know that saying, and I think it's more of a we see, and my mom does this really well. You kind of see the BS for what it is, and my mom always says it. You know, she doesn't have her older sister's her best friend. That's who she talks to every single day, aside from myself. My dad's her best friend. Other than that, like, she don't really got no friends outside of her family. She's like, she knows how people are. She knows their intentions. She can see right through, you know, all the fakeness and all that stuff. So she only allows a certain amount of people to have a certain amount of access to who she is as a woman. And I'm starting to kind of go down that same path of only allowing, you know, a certain amount of people. You know, I'm still young, and I think with that, the older you get, the more, especially, you know, me being in my mid-20s, you know, you come across so many people in different stages of life. You know, they're in a different stage of life, I'm in a different stage of life, so you come across so many people, so you encounter so many different types of personalities, you encounter so many different types of, you know, BS and things like that. And so you kind of get accustomed to realizing what you should allow in a lot faster and what you should allow not. And so I think it's, you know, the older you get, it's kind of like, rather than, you know, allowing someone the benefit of the doubt to bring them into your life and then realizing, they played me too, it's kind of just like, rather than even giving them benefit of the doubt, it's kind of like, I'm not even going to allow myself to. I already have and need the people that I have in my life right now. Why do I need to add more? You know what I mean? It's more, rather be safe than sorry. Rather be safe at being like, I don't need 20 people in my life. I don't need 10. Like my mom, she could probably count everyone that she actually allows in her life like in one hand. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to get there in an aspect of like who I am as a person, especially because I know how I react when, you know, people do let me down. And so I think, you know, the older you get, you realize that a lot faster. And so it makes it a lot easier to not only cut people out, but not allowing people in. And so when you're doing that, it's like you're not adding anything. Now you're just removing it.
Yeah. Mike, you said something earlier at the house. We were sitting talking, and I said, you know, why not invite this person over and spend time with them? And you said you had worked so hard to find your mental stability that you didn't want to do anything to jeopardize it.
So on the point that we were just on, the older you get, the less people that have access to you. And I believe that because you actually had the experience of repercussions. So pretty much whatever you spend your time into, and you live long enough to see the repercussions of how much time you either wasted, people that screwed you over, the type of people you don't want to hang around, and so on and so forth. You start to realize what your own value is. So once your value raises, you can pick and choose certain personalities you like, or with certain people that like the same things you do. for example, like we're in a group of building businesses, lifting heavy, doing our car stuff, doing everything we want to do together. And we let each other in because we know at the end of the day, we're all going to benefit each other and actually increase each other's value. Letting in that BS though, we know we can sniff it from a mile away because we've done it before. We got hurt by it before. So I think it's just the experience that makes us see our value and limit the access of people that don't increase that value.
It's also hard to get out. Once the BS finds its way in, it gets real sticky real fast. Because now you're battling multiple fronts. You're battling why you let it in. You're battling how to get it out. You're battling your own mental health during. There's too much to manage. So the best thing to do is to play it safe. And that's what happens, I think, when you get older, is you start to just take less risk in that category, because there's so many other categories that you need to be taking risk in, that I can't be focused on whether or not someone's going to truly do right by me. I need to be focused on whether or not my business is achieving its goals. I need to be focused on whether or not my job is going well and my team is well fed mentally and emotionally. I need to be focused on so many different things. I say all this, and yet I am nowhere near perfect at it. This last week, as you mentioned, it was a difficult one, because every time that I thought I was making the right move with a certain individual, it was like, legitimately, I felt like it would be like 2 steps forward, and then within hours it felt like it was like 7 steps back. And I was like, I don't know where I sit with you. I don't. And then it clicked to me, and I mean this with so much love, I realized that I am not eligible to be responsible for someone else's mentality, for someone else's emotional health. I'm not there yet. Especially not someone who really needs a certain type of care in that area. This is really difficult for me to admit to myself. It comes a little bit easier now, but at the time, I gotta tell you, it really sucked, because there was an ego death, and then there was emotional turmoil that caused me to question what I thought that relationship was going to be. And I still don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is that it's not my responsibility, nor is it within my capacity to manage someone else's emotions. I don't have it. I'm just going to come clean and tell you I don't have it. When you guys come to me from time to time and you say, man, I got this problem, I feel very confident in working with you and being there for you to help you through it. And I don't know if it's different with men. I don't know if that's just the way that our relationship works. But let me tell you one thing that I did realize today. I saw a post, and what it said was so profound. It was Bishop T.D. Jakes, and he was trying on a jacket from a gentleman that didn't fit him. And he said something to the effect of, we have to remove the things that don't fit in our life. We have to remove the people who don't fit in our life. And it's okay that they don't fit for you. They might fit for someone else. And something I noticed about us is that we fit. It comes so naturally to me when Mike has an issue. It comes so naturally to me when Chris has an issue. It doesn't feel like work a lot of the times. It just feels like I'm supposed to sit and listen and be there and be present and provide feedback, and sometimes not. But I never feel as though I am worsening the situation. And as I tried to branch out and help more people, I began to realize that that's not as easy as it seems. We find that it comes easier with the people who fit. And thus, we think we can take that into every facet of life and help every category of human. And that is as far from the truth as is possible. And it's not to say that they're unfixable. It's just to say that you don't have the right tools. When we come back, what I'd really like to touch on is how you can be there to support the people that are around you and how much is too much to give. When do you know that you've given too much? That you may have overexerted yourself in a situation and it might be time to pull back?
I love this question just because it's funny in a sense of yesterday I was talking to Nicole. I was driving to, the new place, moving and stuff. And she said something along the lines of she's like, I'm happy for you. And I was like, all right. She's like, I'm happy for you. She's like, because I always remember, and this is her talking. She's like, I always remember this podcast, kind of in the beginning. And you mentioned something about, friends and feeling like you give too much. And she's like, I'm happy because I now see, your current friends, the people that you involve yourself with, actually take an appreciation for who you are as an individual. And it's funny that you asked that, because it's like, I feel that when you've given too much is when you don't feel appreciated and you feel drained. And I've 100% have felt drained with just everything that has to do with that friendship, relationship, all of it. And so I feel like when you've given too much is when you feel like you've kind of exerted yourself to the point where you're adding more value to them than they're adding to you. And it's a sucky situation just because I know, speaking for myself, I do everything with an intent to show some sort of love. That's what I believe, I was put on this earth to do, was to constantly just, give people love, whether, it was like truly, having a serious conversation, or whether it is, to trying to making them laugh, like putting a smile on their face. And so I do everything with an intent to just love on everyone that I possibly can. And so when I feel like I've gone out of my way to do that for someone, and I just feel like it's not reciprocated almost, and I don't do it with an intention to receive something back, but it's almost like, even if I don't get anything back, I at least want to know that what I'm giving is appreciated, because I never ask for anything. So I feel like when you do things with an intent and it's almost just not appreciated, and you just feel drained time and time again and kind of almost disappointed, that's when you should just realize that your value as an individual should be put somewhere else. And that shouldn't be something as like, because I know the way I've felt is, man, now I'm gonna have this sense of guilt that I'm giving up on this person. And you're not, because at the end of the day, there could be someone else that could use what you're giving and actually appreciate it and hold it on and take it, to the masses. You know what I mean? And so I've tried to look at it that way, that if this individual that I've given so much love and care to and intent with is just not going to appreciate it, that's fine. I've given what I can. Now let me see if someone else actually needs it and is going to, be able to do something with it. Maybe the way I see it, it's kind of like a tree effect. You're the main branch, you give it to someone else, they branch off and they're able to give it to someone else, and so on and so forth. But if you're giving it to someone that isn't, then that branch isn't going to flourish. It's not going to produce. It's just going to be dead. And our intent constantly is being able to allow ourselves to provide something for someone that can actually provide something to someone else.
So I'm gonna go off of what you said, because I had something similar to say. So how do you know whenever you're giving too much to help out somebody's situation? I believe it's when you're expected to take care of the situation and becomes your responsibility. It's one thing to help out a friend, but it's another thing to be demanded to help. And once you become responsible for the outcome, and then somehow you're blamed for any kind of negative effect, I feel like you pretty much involuntarily became the lightning rod for the situation, which you should never get to that point. And they just got used to you being the arbiter of all the outcomes and all the negatives that come in their life. So if you helped out to that point that they rely on you or they demand on you to take care of the situation, I believe that's when you helped out too much.
Yeah, it's like people have a lack of responsibility, so then they're willing to bestow that responsibility onto you.
Yeah.
That's a scary narrative, because it's something that people who are in our positions or people who think like us don't really consider, because we never look to someone else to embrace all of our responsibility. We were all raised to manage that ourselves. It's almost like you don't even realize you're taking it on because you're not sure what to look for, because you're not even looking. I don't know that you're expecting this of me. I think we do it to ourselves too. Yeah, I think so. I think we place a high level of expectation upon the success of the relationship on ourselves.
There is the argument of certain people that become successful, that they struggle hard enough and long enough, then they're the ones that don't rely on other people for their success. So there's a lot of people that don't, but then the ones that do, they take accountability for their own lives and not rely on other people to get out of their struggles. I think that's a different type of person.
I worry about the people who don't take the responsibility. I really do, because they're missing out on so much. Like, I know responsibility is often regarded as something most people don't want to do, right? Be responsible. But there's control in responsibility. Like, you can take control of your life by being responsible for yourself, for others that you're supposed to be responsible for, but mainly for your journey. You know who I'm starting to stay away from more? People who don't have large ambitions. Like, you don't want to change anything. You don't want to help anyone. You don't want to affect anything. I'm not talking about so you can get your name on a park bench. I mean so that you can leave this earth better than when you came into it. And I'm not joking. I don't understand it. I actually don't get it. And I blame you guys. I'm so serious. Like when you're around these type of high achievers, when you're around people who dream the way that you all dream, it becomes your narrative, becomes ingrained in you, like that name on the park bench.
Yeah, you hear it many times to never be the smartest one in the room. Obviously, never the dumbest in the room. But you want to surround yourself with people that you want to be like. For example, if your whole life you're around super successful people, one day you'll have a much higher chance of being successful. If you're around a whole bunch of losers, you might end up just that way. Who was it? I forgot what motivational speaker said it, but they were like, "Show me your closest 5 friends, and I'll show you your future." That's pretty much a lot of what we're saying. So if you're hanging around people who, it's like their main persona is to blame all their problems on everybody else or their past, and have no accountability for themselves on fighting for the future, those are the people you don't want to be around, because there's always going to be some kind of excuse, always a lack of accountability. And at the end of the day, you know where they're going to end up at. And of course, then it's going to be your fault if they don't become successful.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
It's how do I say this? It's hard enough as it is to manage my own goals and my own expectations. Please don't add yours to my pile. I have a team of people who I need to ensure the success of to the degree that I can. Please don't come into my life and think that the value you will find in me is managing your responsibilities and managing your expectations. You will not find it here. Not anymore. For many years, you would have, but unfortunately that door has closed. And I think for a time, it took away from what I believed my value was, because it seemed as though that was the only thing that people looked to me to do. They didn't look to me to just be me. And then I found you all. And you all were okay with me just being Reg. Like, if I changed my idea of what I wanted to do and I just wanted to build a beautiful family and work my job, I feel like you guys would still be there, right? You'd still need to take the time to go chase your own ambitions, but you would still love me for me. Once that changed, once I found people who loved me for who I was and cared about me as friends and as brothers and as... Dude, I stopped allowing access to people who only valued me for what I could do for them. So, once again, thank you.
One thing I like to tell people, I preach this a lot, is at the end of the day, your future is your fault, 100%. You can blame anybody else, you can blame society, you can blame family, upbringing, blah, 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 blah. There was one thing I heard on the internet, it's a little story about people blaming how their current life is based on how they grew up or how society was. So the story I heard was imaginary land, right? Imagine you're in Brooklyn and everybody around you when you were kids sold drugs, right? You know where you need to go in life. You know what's right and wrong, but because of society, you're not selling drugs. So you become the man selling this and that, like, hey bro, I got that good stuff, blah, blah, blah. Become the king of the East Coast, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you in your house, you hear that knock, 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 right? You got cops take you in. Cool. Freaking go down to the police station, and then they're like, all right, we got this on you. We found 20 kilos, this and that. About to go away for a long time. What do you got to say? At that point, you can't be like, oh, well, it was the society that I grew up in. It was my friend's fault that I became the king of the East Coast selling crack, selling all this and that. Because they're locking you up. So at the end of the day, it's going to be your fault. You can blame anybody you want to, but your outcome is based on your actions. You can blame the ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, whatever. You can blame your teachers, all this and all that. But at the end of the day, if you don't like the way it is, keep saying the blame, but take action for your own future. Because at the end of the day, you are your own person. Nobody can control you at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's kind of, when it comes to the things that you do, mistakes, not mistakes, then the way I look at it is, for those, obviously, those that believe in stuff, at the end of the day, when you meet your maker, it's like, you're going to have to answer for what you did. I'm going to have to answer for what I did. They're going to have to answer for what they did. And so it's like, take accountability for yourself and what you do with your life. You can't blame this person because, this is, you brought me to do this. You can't blame that person for, they made me do it. This or that. It's like, you're your own individual. You decided to do what you wanted to do, whether that was for the good or whether that was for the bad. And it's like, I constantly see this persona that people don't like to take accountability for their own actions. They want to blame something else because that's just so much easier. But then once it comes to the good things, they blame themselves because it makes them look good. So I think the biggest takeaway is just, take accountability for your own actions. Don't be blaming people that, you surround yourself with, because at the end of the day, you're the one that decided to go hang out with them. I told you this last night, when it comes to, high valued man and the way you see yourself can be a little bit different from how other people see yourself. And that's who you surround yourself with by association.
Yeah. I also don't care. And I know this isn't what you're saying, but I also don't care. I don't care how other people view me. Somebody said this to me the other day. They said they felt like it might be an insecurity that I kept saying that I don't care about people's opinions of me. And I was like, that couldn't be further from the truth. I am extremely insecure. Not insecure, but I'm extremely cognizant of how the people who I care about feel about me. How you guys feel about me, how Mac feels about me, how my mother feels about me, how Cristobal feels about me. But that dude over there standing on that deck, I do not care how he feels. I don't mean him any disrespect. It's just I had to remove all of that input. I had to do it. I needed to do it. There was a time when I did care. I would literally look over there and be like, oh my God, I wonder what that dude on that deck feels like about me right now. I now, it doesn't even, unless it's of danger to me or of danger to my family and friends, it doesn't faze me anymore.
Because at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own future.
For me.
Yeah.
So you can't be blaming society or how somebody else may or may not feel about you, especially a stranger.
Yeah.
That has no control. That's like a perceived emotion, but it's not no actual control on any effect of your life.
And I used to say this, and we can end here. If somebody feels some type of way about you, a good way to test the legitimacy and the necessity of their opinion is to go home and turn your lights on. If your light switch still works, that means these people don't pay your bills.